Okay, well, let's take a look at the ISP summary or your quarterly review. We don't have as many problems with this. Usually the problems we've talked about before, they result from you creating your new ISPs. But so we've been through all of that. So let's take a look at how we do our summary reviews. Notes here. So just a couple things to remember for your summary or your quarterly review. And it's a summary review depending what program you're in. It's a quarterly review depending what program you're in. Most of our MHSA programs are using the ISP summary review service. Our ID case management programs using the quarterly review service. It functions the same way, regardless of what service you're using. The forms attached are different. But it does function the same way. A couple key things to remember. The date of your ISP summary or quarterly review service must be the last day of your reporting period. So if your review period goes from March 15 to April 15, I know that's a really short review period, but for testing sake, you're going from March 15 to April 15, the date of the ISP summary or quarterly review service should be April 15, the last day of your reporting period. Those of you who are fortunate enough to have BI reports to track some of this stuff, it is pulling from that date of the service. MH and SA, primarily they're due every 90 days from the date the review was done. So that was done with the client. So that's the date that you're meeting with the client is going to be the last day of the reporting period, and it's the date of the service. And then you have a BI report that's going to calculate the next 90 days off that service date. For ID, you guys have straight up every 3 months. You don't have the weird 90-day thing that's going on. It's just every 3 months. But again, you're still going to have the last day of that third month of the reporting period is the date of your service. Let me go back. Ooh, how'd that happen? Hang on. Did not mean to do that. Let's see. Back to it. Okay. For most of our MH and SA programs, after you meet with the client, you have 15 days to get the to get the signature, to complete the document, the summary review, to get signatures from all of those involved, and to be sure that it's in your signature as well and it's signed and submitted within the chart. So in order, what I'm trying to do is move some pictures around here, and I keep clicking the wrong thing. So hang on, let me do this again. Sorry about that. Ooh, it's been a morning. So what we're looking for there is, again, the service date is the last day of the review period. It's the date you met with the client. And then your signature date or transfer date on the service details must be within 15 days of the date of the service. So 15 days, and we can track that right there within the service. For your ID, DD, case management, you guys got 30 days. So your signature date should be within 30 days from the date of the service. Always remember as well that the last summary review service of your ISP year must be scheduled on the last day of the final review period and must be also the end date of the TX Plus. So we've talked before about how best practice is make sure your ISP, when you start your TX Plus, that your initial, you're starting your TX Plus begins on the same date as the start date of the TX Plus, and the service is the same date as the TX Plus, so everything pulls in. For the ISP summary review, you kind of have that in reverse. You make sure that your last ISP summary review for that ISP year is the day before your next ISP and TX Plus begin, and that you scheduled that last summary review service on that day before the first date of your next ISP year. And make sure it's that very last day and it coincides with the end date of your TX Plus, so that way you can pull it in to the service. If you put your if that very last fourth quarter ISP summary review or quarterly review, if you date it for a date that's after the end date in the TX Plus, you are not going to be able to pull the TX Plus in. It's not going to work. And then we also say the best way to make updates to your ISP is via a summary or quarterly review. What this does do is it forces more summary and quarterly reviews, but by making the updates via your summary review and then getting that summary review service signed, we're always staying within regulations and within compliance. Any questions about any of this? Okay, so what we're going to do is go on to look at a summary review here. So today I'm going to create this the third ISP summary review for my client, Yogi Bear. I'm going to be working in the MHOP program today. All right, so we all know how to schedule appointments, but we'll review. We'll go up here, we'll click the ellipsis, and I'm going to look for my client. I got Yogi Bear today. And I'm going to select my service type. I'm working within the MH outpatient program, so I'm looking for the ISP summary review service. Well, as we scroll through ID here, you guys are using the quarterly. Let's see. Where is it? Here it is. You guys are using this quarterly ISP review right here. And I'm going to keep on scrolling though down to MH outpatient. I'm going to look for the ISP summary review. Oh, I think I passed it. Thanks. There it is. Okay. I'm going to put in my location. I'm going to be doing this one out in the community. I have my date, my time, my duration. It is not a group activity. I'm not adding to the wait list. I can go ahead and just schedule it to my calendar, or I can begin the service. You know, if I'm scheduling in advance, I would hit the schedule button. But again, if you're scheduling in advance, remember, it's got to be that last day of the review period that you're scheduling it on. And I'm going to begin my service. So when we get in here, the first thing we notice is the Add TX Plus link isn't here. And that's good. I look down because the TX Plus is covering the state of the service. I don't want to see the Add TX Plus link here. If I see that there, that's a problem. I can look down here and I see that the TX Plus is pulling in already. So this is good. If I don't see this here, that's a problem. So we would want to contact the Credible team if you're not seeing that. Over here, you're going to pick the category for, if you're doing an ISP summary review, you have to click this ISP summary review category. If you're doing the quarterly review in ID case management, when the form opens up, you guys have more options here to choose from. So make sure you choose, the category over here on the right that belongs to you. So for now, I'm going to click this ISP summary review. So I get into my form. I am going to complete this form here at the top. So the team program type, this is, looks like I need to actually update this because we've had some new folks come in, new programs been added on, but please be sure that you pick your program type from here. All this really does is give you instructions. That's the purpose of this. Just kind of letting you know, are you on a 90-day plan? Is like a review every 90 days? What kinds of things you need to be including in your review based off the current regulations, things like that. So all it really does do is give you instructions, but nevertheless helpful. So pick what belongs to you. And I'm in outpatient, so I'm going to choose the all MH outpatient programs. So here's some of these instructions that pop up. Here is the type of contact. We're all used to that. We pick the one that is most appropriate. So I said I'm doing this out in the community. So I'm actually doing this face-to-face with the client is what I'm going to say. And then we're going to pick which summary review. And we have summary review 1 through 6. An ID case management, you guys have quarterly reviews 1 through 4. We have multiple reviews here because for MH and SA programs, the rule is that you're doing it on or before the 90 days. You can't go over 90 days. If you go over 90 days, you're out of compliance. So you're on or before the 90 days. And then you're going to be doing the next one 90 days from the one that you just did. So that's why you sometimes might end up with multiples here. Additionally, when we're saying you might have to do you might need to update the ISP before that 90 days comes along, and you might have to update the ISP multiple times during the year, more than just for reviews. So if we're updating, the best way to update the ISP is to do an ISP summary review. That way everything pulls in and we get this ISP signed with all that updated information. So you might end up doing more than just 4. Also, please be sure that you're keeping track. Is this the first review, the second review, please be sure you're keeping track. We're seeing in some audits where the summary reviews are actually out of order. There'll be one service, I might have a service dated for December and it's summary review 4. And then I've got 2 months later, maybe in February, there's one and it's the second review. And then in April, there's a third review, but it's the 6th review. So we're kind of seeing that they're being put out of order. And the other thing we want you to remember is when the new ISP begins, the first summary review following the start date of that new ISP is always summary review number 1. We're also seeing in audits where a new ISP has started and the first summary review after that, it's like summary review 4. And we've also seen where they're crossing over the ISP start date. So if I have an ISP that started on April 15, the next summary review, we're looking at, sometimes what we're seeing is there's a summary review that's covering the dates of March 15 to May 1st. And that's called summary review number 4. So we don't want to do that. We want to be sure we're ending our last summary review on the last date of the TX Plus, and we're starting brand new with summary review number 1 on the first day of the TX Plus. And then we're ordering them properly in this schedule or the service. So we see them properly in the service list. So I'm actually on the 3rd ISP summary review for Yogi Bear. So I'm going to pick number 3. And this is kind of a really short summary review period. I'm only going to review service dates June 4 through June 8. I know it's really short. Made some calculation errors when I was kind of prepping some of this stuff, but that's okay. You still get to see the functionality. So today's date is the 8th. This is the date I'm conducting my review with this client. So my service date is the 8th and my end date of the review period is the 8th. My next review for review 4 is going to be it's going to be 90 days, if not before. And if I end up having to, if my 90 days is going to cross over, because my next review is the 4th review, if it's going to cross over my next ISP start date, I'm going to truncate again and have it be less than 90 days. So always keep that in mind. In here, we're going to put down assessment of current needs, significant events, recommendations. So this is a great place where there are any incidents that you might need to document. Anything can go in here. Just kind of a brief summary of the service delivery during that time. It can be brief because you're going to get into more details in a little bit. This can include good information and it can include bad information. So, maybe they moved into a better living situation. We can say that client moved into a better living situation for themselves and their family. Or again, it could be there was an incident, there's a hospitalization. So it could be something, that's not so great information, but you want to make sure that you're putting everything in here. And now, are there going to be any additional recommendations for, moving forward? Are we going to be updating the ISP? There is a question here. So we can even put more information down here if we're going to be updating the ISP. But I might go ahead and just say it again. Updates will be made. Please see below. We can really put a lot of stuff in here. Then we have the individual family satisfaction. We do need to be tracking people's satisfaction. Are they satisfied with services? And be honest, if they're not satisfied, why are they not satisfied? What is the plan to increase their satisfaction? If they are satisfied, let's say, yeah, they're satisfied. This is what they like. And moving forward, this is how we'd like to see things moving forward so that we can continue satisfied. So, whatever you need to put in here. Then are we going to change the ISP? If you're not going to make any modifications, you can say no. But if I'm going to make some modifications here, so I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to put down, that they may have met a particular goal or objective and it's just no longer applies. Or maybe they met a particular standard in a goal or objective, but we now need to increase, up the ante on it. So, maybe there's, we're trying to ensure that they're getting to the doctor, that maybe this is a client who's got some medical issues. Maybe they need to really be going to the doctor every couple of months, but hey, we first started out, well, if you can't go every 2 months, can we try to get you there every 3 or 4 months? And maybe they're meeting that now. Okay, you're doing really great. It's consistent. Now the doctor really does want you to come every 2 months. Let's see if we can now tackle that 2-month time frame. So we're going to up the ante on that. Or maybe there's some sort of budgeting goal. We're going to pay our bills on time, certain amount for a certain time, and we're meeting that. So now we're going to actually tighten that gap so that we have more of our bills being paid on time than just a couple bills or whatever. So we're going to summarize what we're doing here. Are you going to discontinue something? Are you going to add on? Add problem, goals, objectives, interventions, we can do it all. And then the next summary review date. So for most of your MH and SA programs, you're going to be putting a 90-day mark here. If you know that the ISP is going to be end dating before that 90 days, I recommend that's the date you put here. For ID case management, you're putting your next 3-month date here. This field here sends out a trigger notification to the person who completes this service. You're going to get a notification, I think it's about 15 days before this date that you put in here. So this date, this is an important field because it does send out to-do notices. Let's see. So I'm going to put 90 days in here, and I'm not going to count it. I think last time or time before I showed folks how to Google a date calendar, and then someone, I don't remember who it was. I want to say it might be Ashley, but I'm not sure. Also said that, the calculator that we have in Windows can also do calculations for date calculations for us. So I'm going to actually add 90 days to today's date. There it is. So Tuesday, September 6th should be the next time my review is due. And I'm going to put that in here, September 6th. And then down here, we have some state data reporting elements. Make sure you answer these accurately. The physical date that's still in here. Must be a date in the past. It cannot be a future date. And please don't put all zeros. So put whatever their last date of the physical was. I'm just going to say maybe they went out and saw the doctor this week. Are we obtaining verbal consent due to COVID-19? I'm doing this face-to-face, so no, I'm going to actually get a client signature on this. So I'm not doing the whole COVID thing here. And then I'm going to click the complete button. So once I fill out the form, I then come over to my TX Plus category here, and then this pulls in the TX Plus format. So we have what we want people to be doing is please document all your ISP summary reviews on every objective. Every objective must have the ISP summary reviews on them. You can see I've already done some documentation on this client. So it kind of pulls that in so it shows to you. You are welcome to document on the problem, the goal, and or interventions if you'd like, but you have to do the objectives. We're seeing in some audits where some people are documenting on the problem or the goal for one summary review, and then maybe a different employee or clinician's doing the next summary review, and then they're pulling it, they're doing it into the objective. So when we go to kind of look at a completed TX Plus, or we might need to print it out, it just looks kind of wonky. It's kind of hard to find where was the first summary review versus the second summary review. So we want to be consistent. Everything is at least in the objectives, and we can see that consistency here. A first summary review on April 22nd, a second summary review on June 3rd. So do want to be this just makes it consistent and easier to read. So what I'm going to do, we do want people to be labeling their reviews. So I'm going to put third ISP summary review here, and the dates of my review period, which are 6/4 through 6/8. Also notice my second summary review was ended on June 3rd. It was 4/23 through June 3rd. So now my third is June 4 through today's date, June 8. And then here, I'm going to document progress, barriers to progress, and put in whatever you need to. Plan to address barriers or lack of progress. We are in some audits, we're seeing very minimal information here. We've seen things like clients made progress towards its objective and then nothing else. What is that? What is that progress?
Mitzi, can I add something there?
Yep.
It's important to be sure you give yourself credit for everything that you're doing in these summary reviews, because the licensing specialists and other auditors are looking for a connection between your summary review and the goals on the ISP. So it's just important. Don't assume that they know what you're doing, but actually demonstrate it and put it in writing.
Yep. Exactly. So, you might need to go back through some progress notes maybe, and then see what you did. So if this was a housing objective during that time frame, you guys, you went to the housing authority, you looked at some rental units or whatever. You need to be sure you did all that. We went and reviewed these rental units on this date. Application with the housing authority completed on this date. So that's all that credit. That's the progress you made. It's really, like you said, Darlene, it's like give yourself the credit for what you did. You guys do a lot of work. And then when we see these reviews that just say, yeah, progress was made, or little progress was made, and no explanation of what that means, the auditors will cite us for that. And you guys do a lot of work. So let's put it in here. Any other questions so far?
Yes, Mitzi. I know I couldn't get through this without asking you a question. So, documenting documenting in any MHOP program, I'm understanding that after every 6 sessions, there has to be a summary review. What if that client is receiving group therapy as well? Does that count in the 6th session?
Yes. Yes, that's a really great question. And thank you for bringing that up because I did not state that earlier and I should have. So for MH outpatient, kind of wonky little rule that you have, you really have to do your summary review every 6 sessions or every 90 days, whichever comes first. No, SA outpatient doesn't have that same rule. It's just 90 days. But you're right, Lucretia. It counts. Sessions include individual, family, and group. So if you have a client who in 1 week received an individual session, a family session, and a group session, you are halfway in 1 week's time, halfway to your ISP summary review. And if the same thing happens in the 2nd week of their services, you're doing an ISP summary review within 2 weeks. So yes, it does count. Thank you. That was a great question. Any other questions so far? So while I'm gonna move on because while I'm here, I can end date. I can end some objectives. Maybe this objective we're working on here, I need to end, and I'm going to say that we've met this objective. And in its place, I'm going to put in a new objective, maybe. I'm going to explain what that would be. If this would be something, if I'm going to up the ante, if I'm not going to put a new objective in its place, well, I'm going to have to actually put a new objective in its place because if I get rid of this objective, I've got a goal with no objective. So remember, you always have to have for every problem, there must be a goal. For every goal, there must be an objective. Excuse me. And for every objective, there must be at least one intervention. So if I get rid of this objective, I've got a goal with no objective. So I'm going to have to put a new objective in its place. So what I'm showing you here, I can just remove one objective and add a new objective in its place. You could conceivably add, if you wanted to, add a new goal with a new objective and new intervention as well. You can add new problem statement with a new goal, new objective, new intervention. It all kind of works the same. But since I'm going to end date this, my ISP actually doesn't end until 3. You know, I'm telling you all to be good with your summary reviews, and mine are not very good right now. But I'm going to end date this objective early. I'm going to end date it as of today's date because I no longer need it. So I'm going to say 6/8/2022. Additionally, though, I need to end date. Oh, wait a minute. I also additionally need to end date this intervention underneath it. Can't have, because this intervention is attached to this goal. So we're going to throw an error later if I don't do that. So I'm going to end date this one as well. But then what I want to do is add, oh, I got other interventions down here. I got to end date those too. What I want to do though now is add a new goal into its place. A new objective into its place. So to do that, I come up to the goal that I'm going to add my new objective to, and I click the Add New Objective button. This is going to actually take me in here to the TX Plus Builder once I do that. So here I've got my problem, my goal, my objective. You notice the documentation that I did earlier, it's not in here. That's okay. It is saved behind the scenes. You just don't see it in this format. Oh, and this actually changed my end date, so I'm going to have to go back and put my end dates in. So I should have realized that was going to happen. So we don't need to put those end dates in on the service part. You pull it when you pull into the form builder. You'll put your end dates here. date this one. Well, what I'm going to do, let's see what we do here. So now when I want to add my goal, I click on the goal here, and then I add objective here. And you'll see it pops down a new objective in here. So I got multiple things going on. That should happen. Problem, goal. Here's the objective I'm ending. I need to end date. I need to actually end date the intervention that goes with it. Oh, I got an error. Let's see, please correct date format. Okay, and then I cannot expire. Children elements cannot expire after their parents. Oh, I got two of those. Okay, so what that means is I have to, we talked about this, I think, the last month. We have to work from the bottom up when changing end dates sometimes. So the parent is the objective when you see that. The parent, in this case, is the objective, and the intervention is the child. I have to be sure that I'm actually end dating my children first. It's going to get wonky here. There we go. So I can put my end dates here and work my way up. So I got my end date in this intervention and end date in this intervention, and now I can put an end date here. There we go. So that fixes that problem. I have to end these interventions because they're connected to this objective. So if I don't end them, it's not going to let me, it's going to force me to end them. So now I have two new objectives that ended up in here. I didn't really want two objectives. I must have hit the objective button twice. So I don't need one of these. I'm going to get rid of it. I click the X, which also reminds me another reason for putting in end dates. We never delete something off of TX Plus that the client has already signed. Once the objective's in place, a problem goal, any PGOI is in place, they've signed that ISP. When that is no longer applicable, we end date it and it expires it. So we no longer see it, but it's still there. And then I'm going to create my new objective here. And it starts today, the day that I am doing this service. And this is going to end on the date of the same date up here on 3/29/2023. That's the end date of my TX Plus. And then I'm going to put in my description here. And then I'm going to have to add, remember, we need to add an intervention. For every objective, there needs to be an intervention. So I make it yellow and come up to the top here. And I'll click interventions and I'll scroll down and now I can click on my intervention. Again, my start date is today and my end date is 3/29/2023, the last day of my TX Plus. My description and who is responsible. This pop-up calendar doesn't want to go away. There you go. The frequency, again, remember, whatever frequency you put in here, you need to be documenting at that frequency. There's got to be something somewhere. If you put in here that you're doing this daily, you're going to have a daily progress note on this intervention or this objective. So pick accordingly. And then your modality, and we talked about before, please pick the right modality. You can, if you need multiple modalities, you can add those into your description. Any questions so far? So gonna make sure that my active is still checked. So it is now, and then I'm going to go ahead and save it. So now we come back into here. We have my problem statement, my goal. Here's that documentation still sitting here, has an end date of 6/8/2022 today. That intervention is ended. This second intervention here is ended with it. And now here's my new objective that starts today and my new intervention that starts today. I can click the complete button. And then we're at the sign and submit page. We'll make sure I was doing this face-to-face. I've got my diagnoses, my location, my billing group. If your program needs a supervising physician, then you would click from here. And if with this for folks in outpatient, if you are LEs completing this, you are going to want your the supervising clinician to be sure that they sign this ISP, because we've updated the ISP. It's been modified. We've taken some things off and we've added new items to it. So they are going to have to sign this. We have our service date, our start, which is today's date again, start and end time. I can enter my password. I can collect signatures right here if I'm with the client. And come in, they can capture their signature here. If there's a parent legal guardian with them, they can sign that as well. So we want to be sure we got all our signatures. My signature, of course, stamps with my password. So I'm going to sign and submit. So when I come over to the service tab, we'll take a look at it. So we go through, we look at the summary review form. We have the date is 6/8/2022. The end date of my review period is 6/8/2022. I happen to sign and submit this and transfer it today. Just remember, keep in mind, if you're most MHSA programs, you're looking at a 15-day date range, no more than 15 days between this date here and these dates here. And for ID case management, you're looking at no more than 30 between this date here and these dates here. And when I come down here, this is the important part, we see my documentation. This is my third ISP summary review. And I can see where it's been end dated today. These interventions were end dated with it. And I can also see now my new objective and intervention that I added. And this is signed by the client. Again, if you're in outpatient services and you're an LE, you need to get your supervising clinician or to sign that as well, because you've modified this. What will happen at the next ISP summary review is we will actually not see these ones that were end dated on 6/8 when you pull it, because they are going to be expired today at 11:59. But you will see these two new ones down here when you go to document. Any questions so far? The next thing I want to show you is if I go over to Yogi Bear's nav bar, I want to show you what this looks like on the nav bar and sort of how that documentation really looks. I don't know if people have taken the time. When you come to the nav bar, I suspect most people are just hitting this edit button. But every once in a while, take a peek at the select button. This is going to show you all the documentation. What I'm going to do is click this show all button in case I've got anything that's expired to date. And then we have these little plus signs down here. You're going to, depending on how many PGOIs you have, there could be multiple little plus signs. So go ahead and open them all up. So now we see our problem statement, my goal, my objective, and I can see the trail again of the documentation against this particular ISP. And I can see even the new one that I've added down here now. I can see 3 here now, but there's this additional visit button. So there's actually more than 3 here. If I click this additional visit, I get a pop-up window that I can see all of the documentation against this ISP. So what this looks like is on 4/6, I wrote a progress note and I documented to the ISP. Here's my first summary review, which covers the period 3/30 to 4/22. Then in May, I documented against the ISP in a progress note. Then my second summary review, 4/23 to 6/3. And then my third ISP summary review, 6/4 to 8/22. If I wanted to, I can click on these service links here and it will take me directly to the service if I want to see the whole service. But again, we kind of talked earlier about, making sure that you're keeping track. Is it the first, the second, the third? This is where you can see that we're on target. So any questions? Because we're coming up to the top of the hour. I'm going to write all this up again in a procedure to follow. So people can follow it step by step. Any other questions? hearing none, we're just gonna kind of move along. Shannon, what have you got for us today? We've got door prizes, right?
Yes. Did you see the one question that was in the chat? It says
Oh, I
you
did
can
not. Thank you.
also document on the TX Plus in your progress notes, so you don't have to go back and review all of your notes to see your progress is made.
Exactly. And you know what, Jessica, that's a great point. So you see my documentation here and some of my progress notes, and you noticed when I was documenting on my third summary review, it had that trail, it had this same trail already in there that I could see it. So you don't always have to run back to the progress notes and put them in there, because you can see it right there. So, yep. And we have a lot of people that are more and more documenting to their progress notes. And we do encourage that, because that way it's forcing you to be sure that you're talking about the ISP with every contact you have. Technically, it's not a billable contact if you're not addressing the ISP in some way, shape, or form. You don't have to address every item on the ISP, but you need to address at least one or more. Documenting to the ISP really forces you to do that, and it helps you to really stay on track with what is this person's goals. What is it that they want to do? So that's a great point. Thank you, Jessica.